Right now, the richest person alive can make or lose more money in one day than most people will earn in their entire life. That sounds like the peak of wealth. Until you remember something. For most of human history, wealth was not a number on a screen. It was gold you could carry, land you could control, trade routes you could tax, and power you could enforce. So here is the question. That sounds simple but becomes addictive fast. Who was the richest human being in history? Not just today, not just modern billionaires. All of human history. Stay until the end because the winner changes depending on one detail most people never consider. What counts as being rich? So we are turning this into a game with 3 crowns. Cash crown. Spendable wealth you can move and trade. Ownership. Crown. Assets and businesses that generate wealth. Control. Crown. Land, resources, and entire systems under your command. As we go, keep score with me. After each era, comment one name you think is winning so far. If you change your mind halfway through, that is the point. 10,000 years ago in Jericho, wealth meant survival, not coins. The chief's power rested on control of massive grain stores, about 150,000 kilograms of wheat and barley, enough to feed the community through harsh seasons. His herds numbered around 1,200 sheep and goats, with 20 hectares of irrigated land under his command. Food was the currency, and safety depended on his favor. Every winter, the difference between hunger and plenty came down to his decisions. By modern measures, this was only 0.02% of global output, but in a world always on the edge of famine, that was everything. Number 2, King Solomon. Picture a Bronze Age king counting gold bars by torchlight. The Bible claims Solomon received a jaw-dropping 42 tons of gold in just 1 year. That is not a typo. 42 tons plus another 20 tons coming in every year as tribute from neighboring rulers. His temple estates were sprawling. His fleet numbered 35 ships. They sailed out for gold, silver, and rare timber, and he cornered the market on Lebanese cedar too. But here's the twist. How much did a talent of gold really weigh? Are these numbers literal or legend? Scholars still argue. Some say the true amount was less. Others think the temple's wealth was even greater. What is clear is that Solomon's fortune was not just piles of shiny metal, it was a system. Tribute, land, fleets, and the first hints of organized bullion hoards. This is where cash and ownership crowns start to merge. So pause for a second. Do you trust the ancient receipts or do you think Solomon's story is more myth than math? Drop your take in the comments before we get to the first real coin king. Number 3, King Croesus. Picture this. The sun glinting off a riverbed in ancient Lydia, where gold dust swirls in the water of the Pactolus. Now imagine a king who doesn't just hoard gold, he invents a whole new game. Croesus is the reason you can hold money in your hand. He's the first ruler to strike standardized coins from electrum, straight out of the Sardis mint. No more weighing lumps of metal or trading by the handful. Now, value fits in your pocket. Millions of these coins start moving across the ancient world, turbocharging trade and letting anyone, not just kings, measure their own wealth for the first time. Herodotus calls Croesus the happiest man alive. But here's the twist. When Persia comes knocking, Croesus pays up. 500 talents of gold, maybe 15 to 20 metric tons, just to keep his crown. Did portable cash make him unstoppable, or did it make him a target? Drop your answer below. And get ready, because Rome is about to take this coinage revolution and build an empire with it. Number 4. Augustus, the emperor who turned Rome into a wealth machine. Picture the city at its peak, marble everywhere, legions on every road, and a single man holding the keys. Augustus is not just stacking coins, he is running the ultimate tax engine. The Res Gestae, his own brag sheet, lists a mind-bending 450 million sesterces in annual revenue. That is not a typo. Picture a river of silver and gold flowing straight to the imperial treasury, enough to bankroll armies, build aqueducts, and keep 1 million citizens fed and entertained. Now zoom out. His personal estates? 1 million hectares, farms, mines, palaces, all stamped with the eagle. But here is the real power move. Augustus commands about 12% of the world's GDP. Not just a pile of cash, but a grip on the entire system. This is not wealth you can fit in a vault. It is the first true control crown, command over the world's biggest economic engine. So here's the question. Does ruling the machine beat owning gold? Drop your answer below because the empire game is just getting started. Number 5. Genghis Khan. Picture the steppe stretching from China to Hungary, a single man's shadow falling over 1/5 of the world's economy. Forget gold bars and coin piles, Genghis plays a different game. His wealth isn't locked in a vault. It moves with him, pulsing through the Yam courier network, running down the Silk Road like veins through a body. Every caravan pays a toll. Every city along the route owes tribute. The Mongol tax registers tell the story. Annual revenues that, in today's terms, hit about $1 trillion. That's not just a number. It's control over 20% of the world's GDP. Let that sink in. No one else on this list commands that kind of economic gravity. Not even close. So here's the question. Does ultimate control beat the spectacle of pure cash? Hold that thought because the next contender is going to flood the world with gold. But for now, drop a comment. Are you Team Genghis, the master of the control crown? Number 6. Mansa Musa, the man who turned a pilgrimage into a gold rush. Picture this. The year is 1324, and a caravan snakes across the Sahara. Not just any caravan. This one has 100 camels, each loaded with gold. How much? Contemporary chronicles say Musa handed out between 2.5 and 4.5 tons of pure gold, just as gifts, just for the spectacle. Cairo's gold market was flooded. The price of a dinar dropped by nearly a third, merchants refused to trade, and the entire Mediterranean felt the shockwave. For a brief moment, Musa's wealth isn't just a number, it's a force of nature, bending economies in real time. Archaeologists have traced the gold all the way from Mali's mines to the bazaars of Alexandria. But here's the twist. Was this the ultimate cash crown move, or just showmanship compared to Genghis Khan's invisible grip on the world's output? Who gets your vote? Musa's gold avalanche or Genghis's empire of control? Drop your answer below. The game is on. Number 7. Jakob Fugger, the man who made money itself a weapon. Picture a banker not just counting coins, but buying emperors. Fugger's ledgers, the infamous Fuggerbuch, track assets north of 200 million guilders. That includes silver mines in Tyrol, copper from Hungary, and a banking network that could make or break kings. How big was his cash flow? Try 2 million guilders a year pouring in from trade, mining, and loans. Now here is the real power move. Fugger did not just bankroll merchants, he financed the election of Charles V as Holy Roman Emperor. Imagine writing a check that decides who rules half of Europe. His ownership was not castles or land, it was leverage. Credit, debt, and the first taste of modern capitalism. So pause right here. Does owning the system beat stacking gold or running an empire? Drop your answer below. Is Fugger the first true king of the ownership crown, or just a shadow behind the throne? Number 8. John D. Rockefeller, the man who turned oil into a private kingdom. Picture America in 1911. Standard Oil isn't just a company, it's an empire with tentacles in every refinery, railcar, and gas lamp on the continent. Now, here is the kicker. Rockefeller's personal stake was worth about $1.5 billion back then. That's not pocket change. Adjust for inflation, and you're staring at roughly $340 billion today. Let that number roll around in your mind for a second. That's about 2% of the entire world's GDP at the time, concentrated in one man's hands. His ledgers didn't just list barrels, they mapped the flow of energy powering the industrial world. And when the US government finally broke up Standard Oil, Rockefeller's pile didn't shrink. It split, multiplied, and filled his vaults with shares in every new oil giant. This isn't just cash. It's the clearest, most documented case of the ownership crown in modern history. But now, here's a twist. How does this iron grip on corporate equity stack up against the wild volatility of today's tech billionaires? Drop your take below, because the game is about to get even more unpredictable. Number 9. Elon Musk. Picture it, the world's richest man on paper, but his fortune is a volatile roller coaster. One tweet, and his net worth can swing $50 billion up or down before lunch. Right now, Musk controls about 12% of Tesla, which is valued at $210 billion. Add SpaceX, X, and a handful of moonshot bets, and you are staring at a total equity pile of around $320 billion. But here is the kicker. In cold, hard cash, maybe $25 billion. The rest is all stock, numbers on a screen, moving with the market's mood. His empire is built on equity and network effects, not gold bars or oil wells. The reach is about 0.8% of the entire world's GDP, thanks to electric cars, rockets, and a social media megaphone. But is that real wealth or just hype? Drop your answer below. Does Musk's volatility make him the king of the ownership crown? Or is this just a digital mirage? One crown, one name. Who are you picking? So, after all these eras and epic fortunes, here is the twist. The richest isn't just a number. It's a crown you choose. Cash, ownership, control. History never hands out all three. Now it's your turn. One crown, one name. Drop your answer below and claim your winner.